All right, what's up, everybody? It is a Sunday, and I know it's an NFL Sunday, though I wonder this last week of the regular season how much anybody cares. I know I have not been super drawn to it. Plus, I checked in on my Vikings, and they're already down 6-0 to the Bears. So hopefully Zimmer enjoys his last game as the Vikings head coach, and we make something happen next season. But that is not why you are here. We're here to talk NBA, and holy shit, there are a lot of spots I like on this card today. I was betting as I went, and I think I probably bet more than I should have today. Hopefully, it turns out okay. I'm actually trying to be pretty disciplined about only betting spots that really look good in multiple ways that I'm looking at them. And I just feel like there were a lot of those today. So hopefully, I'm right. If so, it'll be a great day. If not, it could be a pretty bad one. But that's the risk we run. And I'm playing the numbers and the angles that I find. So hopefully, we have a good day and make some money today. All right, lots of games to get through, so let's jump in. First one is the Hawks and the Clippers. Capella, it looks like, is not going to be playing in this game anymore. Obviously, we still have Paul George out, but he's been out. So not a ton of injury news in this one aside from Capella. The Hawks are actually getting most of their guys back now, not Hunter still, but a lot of their guys, so they're getting healthier. Atlanta over the last 7 games has been pretty putrid. They're 2-5 in their last 7. And they've allowed 40% from three-point range 6 times in the last 7 games. They've allowed 52% or better from the field in 4 out of those 7 games. And they've given up 46 or more rebounds in 4 of those 7 games. So you look back at this last 7 for Atlanta, they're giving up 124.2 points a game. Now, obviously, that's going to regress at some point because that's why we have season averages, right? This is well over their season average. It definitely is going to come back down, but I'm not sure if it's going to come back down yet. The Clippers are not a great offensive team, so I don't necessarily expect them to score 124 points, which is the average of other teams against them. But what I do mean is I think it could be a little bit better offensive game for the Clippers than most of their recent games have been. They've only been averaging 102.4 points a game, so I think this could be a better game for them offensively. The Clippers, on the other hand, have been giving up 117.6 on average in their last 5 at home. And Atlanta's scored 119 in their last 5 away from home. And so this looks like a good spot offensively for the Hawks. I just think it could be a decent spot offensively for the Clippers as well. The Clippers in their last 5, they are only 1-4. They've allowed 50% field goals only once. But they allowed over 31% from three-point range in all 5, and Atlanta's hit that in 6 out of their last 7. Now, that's not a super high three-point percentage, but it's a percentage at which Atlanta tends to score the ball pretty well. And so I think, again, it opens up that three-point range for both teams, I would say, in this game, but maybe Atlanta especially. Looking at this game without Capella, the Hawks' offensive rating is actually much better when he plays, 115.2 compared to 108.4. Their defensive rating is better when he doesn't play, but just by a little bit. It's 115.4 to 110.6. I mean, 5 points is a big difference, but still that 110.6 defensive rating is not stellar. And like I've already talked about, more recently, the defense has been pretty pathetic. So some trends here, really bad ATS trends for both of these teams. If they were playing anybody else, it would look good for the other team, but they're playing each other. There is a strong over trend on the Atlanta side, about 50-50 on the Clippers side. And then in this specific matchup, the over is 4-0 in the last 4 in Los Angeles. So I did have a bet here. I think I did 2 units. I'll have to double check. It might have just been 1 unit, but I took the over 221.5. Now, I looked back at this now, and it's up to 226. So that got steamed a lot. And obviously, I'm not here to tell you bets to take that you could have taken like a day ago. So I would say on this one at 226, that's about where I would line it. I think I had it at 228 when I lined it for myself. So I do think a decent amount of the value has gone out of that number. But this is one where if you can watch the games live, and if there's any kind of slow start, and this number can come back around that 220 range or even under, I would personally jump on it. I think it should be a decent spot offensively for both of these teams. And that 221.5 that I got, but if you can get somewhere back around there, not too bad. So, that's what I would shoot for anyway. Next game up is the Wizards and the Magic. Man, the Magic have been so bad lately. They've allowed 115 points or more in 4 out of their last 5. They continue to really struggle to score. They have scored a little bit better at home than they did early in the year, but it's not good. They're on an 8-game losing streak, and I don't think they're going to have Wendell Carter Jr. today, which is not the end all be all. Franz Wagner really tends to drive that team, but it is certainly helpful for them when they have Carter Jr. So that's going to hurt them to have him out some. Washington on the other side, they've actually been scoring the ball pretty well. They've been over 115 in 2 out of 5, but even in those others, they scored 112 and 109. So not terrible, not great. But they've been giving up a lot of points as well. 130, 119, 117, 117, and then 103 in their last 5. So what I was looking at here is, can Washington get to their team total, which is 115 today? What happens when it's 114 and a half, I think. So what happens when Washington scores 115 or more? Well, the biggest correlations are that their field goal percentage is generally over their season average. They average 46.7 on the season. And in December and January, 5 out of the 6 times they've scored 115 or more, they've gone over that season average. The other big one is the assists. Their average on the season is 23.9. And when they've scored 115 or better, they've gone over that average in 6 out of 6 games. So how does Orlando hold up at home on those particular numbers? Well, they give up 48.1% from the field at home, which is 1.5% over the Wizards season average. And they give up 25.9 assists, which is 2 over the Wizards season average. Orlando, the other thing here, so those things point toward Washington being able to hit that team total that they have. The other thing that I did look at is Orlando's average at home is giving up 86.6 field goal and 3-point percentage combined. When Washington gets that, they've scored 124, 112, 124, 110, and then 120. So they've at least been close to this number of 115 in all 5 games when they get that average that Orlando gives up, and they've gone over it in 3 out of 5. As far as the trends go in this game, there's strong ATS trends against Washington and some that are against Orlando, so not really positive for either. There are pretty strong over trends for both teams here. Washington is 2-5 against the spread in the last 7 against Orlando, but they're 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 at Orlando. So kind of some trends on both sides there. All of that to say, I have not this is a game that I didn't bet yet. Though talking through it again and looking at these numbers, I think the over looks okay here. It's 220.5. I think the numbers look good for Washington to be able to get to 115. That would mean Orlando just has to get to 105, 106. So I don't hate that number, and I don't hate Washington's team total over on its own either. Like I said, I have not bet those yet, but looking at the numbers, I think those are pretty solid spots today. Next game up is the Pelicans and the Raptors. The Raptors, who gave me a heart attack against the Jazz with no one playing, but finally covered the spread. It does look like Hart's going to be out today, which isn't like a massive thing to look at, but their defensive rating is 1.5 points worse without Hart. Offensive rating is basically the same. So maybe New Orleans is slightly worse on defense today. Not a big deal either way, though. The Pelicans, looking at their last 7 games, they're giving up 113.6 points a game. Toronto, in their last 5 at home, is scoring 119.2 on average. Now, they have a couple numbers in there that skew this up a little bit, 129, 122, but they've gone over 120 in 3 out of those 5, and then 116 and 109 in the others. So Toronto is a team that I think is just streaking right now, especially offensively. And matchup specific, the Pelicans have Valanciunas and Ingram, but the Raptors definitely have the size and athleticism to keep up with those guys. I'm not saying they can't go out and have decent games here, but I think Toronto matches up really well with this Pelicans team, especially on the interior. So I think it could be a good spot for them today. When we look at why Toronto has scored so much recently, a few different factors. So they've had 44 or more rebounds in all 5 of their last 5 games. The Pelicans allow 43.6, so right at that 44 level, right around there. Field goal percentage, they've averaged they've been at 41.7 or better in all 5, but 45 plus in 4 out of 5 games. New Orleans average is allowing 47.6% from the field, so that's a good number for Toronto. And then from 3-point range, Toronto's been at 38% or better in 3 out of 5. In 2 of these games where they scored well, they only shot 31.4 and 29.3 from three-point range. So not necessarily a massive correlation, but New Orleans allows 37.9% from three-point range on average. So all of those numbers look good for Toronto to me. In terms of trends on this game, very bad against the spread trends for the Pelicans and very, very good ones for Toronto against the Pelicans. There's very strong over trends for both of these teams. And then matchup specific, the over is 4-1 in the last 5 at Toronto, and it's 5-2-1 in the last 8 anywhere between these two teams. New Orleans is 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 at Toronto, so that's the one thing that would point maybe toward the Pelicans positively in this spot. But I would say overall here, man, I think the Raptors are in a good spot. I actually am bummed that I think they started out at only -6.5. Maybe now it's up to -8.5, which is a little bit too high. I have this game lined as Toronto -11 when I did it myself. And so that is a little bit of value, but this is one I'm definitely going to watch live and just hope I can get something more like 5 or 6 for Toronto. As far as the total, I lined this game at 229 total. I got 2 units in on the over 220, which was, I think a good spot. It's up to 221.5 now, but with me having it lined at 229, I still think that number is good. If I was looking at it for the first time at 221.5, I don't know if I'd do 1 unit or 2 unit, but I would definitely still bet that. I think this is a solid spot for the over, solid spot for Toronto's team total over. But I think both teams have the potential to go over in this one. Next game up is the Timberwolves and the Rockets. Rocking the T-Wolves hat today. Well, I do that some kind of whenever they play, but I do think this is a good spot for them here. Let's talk about why that is. So Minnesota kind of has everybody back now. Beverly's still a game time decision, and it would help them to have him back, but it's not make or break. In the last 5 with Towns and Russell in the lineup, they've scored pretty well, but the bigger thing is that Minnesota's been playing good defense. And playing good defense against Houston matters. Houston's really not good. They're 1-9 in their last 10, and their average margin of loss is 16.3 points. So they're not just losing, they're getting destroyed. But they can score the ball decent at times. They scored 123, 114, 113, a lot of times right around that 110 mark in their last 6. They did have a 106 in their most recent game. And so I think Minnesota, being a decent defensive team, is going to do what's needed in order to keep this at a level where Minnesota can be relatively comfortable against the spread. Because Houston gives up a ton of points. They've allowed 120 points in 5 out of their last 6, 130 in 3 out of their last 6. That is just brutal. Half the time in their last 6 games, given up 130 or more. They've allowed 50% or better from the field in 4 out of 6. Minnesota's been over 50 in 2 out of their last 5. So I think this is a good spot for them from the floor here. And then Houston's allowed 40% or better from 3-point range in 4 out of their last 6 games. And Minnesota has not been shooting it that great, up around that 40% mark, but they are over 34% in 3 out of their last 5, which is kind of decent for them. So this is a great spot, I think, for Minnesota offensively. And then in terms of the defense, when we look at the other side, Minnesota's only allowed 105 points 1 time in their last 5 when Towns and Russell are both playing. Houston's over 105 in 6 of their last 6, but again, I don't think they've played really solid defenses, and I think this is going to be a tougher spot for them to score. Minnesota, in that same stretch of 5 games, held opponents under 30% from 3-point range in 3 out of 5, under 44% from the field in 4 out of 5, and under 45 rebounds in 3 out of 5. Houston's only gone over 45 rebounds in 2 of their last 6. So I think that this looks like a good spot for Minnesota across the board, offensively, defensively, all the numbers that I would look at. In terms of trends, there's really strong ATS trends for Minnesota and very, very, very strong ATS trends against Houston. Matchup specific, Minnesota's 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 against Houston. The under is 7-2 in the last 9 at Houston and 4-1 in the last 5 in general between these two teams. So I got Minnesota at -5.5, or sorry, -5 for 2 units. Last I looked, it was at -6.5, and I still like that. I think if it gets up around that 8 or 8.5 mark, I would probably hold off and try to find something live. But I think this is a spot where Minnesota really should win by 10 plus. They're better on defense. They can shut down what Houston generally does well. If Minnesota plays well, they're a little inconsistent. And I think Minnesota's better on offense too. And Houston is absolutely putrid on defense. So it's a good spot. The total here is 233. So I'm staying away from that for now. It's just a little bit high because I think Minnesota actually can hold Houston down under that 110 mark. And then Minnesota would have to score over 120. And I just don't really like that. So if that number came down a ton in the first half, I would be interested in it, but it would probably have to get down to like 215 for me to have much interest in the over here. All right, we move on. I think we're like halfway done or something. A few more games today, but they're fun ones. And again, I think we got some good spots. So the next one up is Denver and Oklahoma City. Denver is finally pretty healthy. They obviously don't have Murray back and they don't have Porter Jr. back, which is still massive. But man, they've had all their role players out and they're finally coming back now. So Denver in their last 5 away from home has not been scoring well, 105.2, but they've been playing pretty good defense. They've only given up 102.2. Oklahoma City on the other side, we know that they never really score the ball. There's an anomaly where they go over 110 here and there, but it's just not common. They've gone over 110 once in their last 5 at home. They're only averaging 102.2, and they're averaging giving up 103.2. So like all these numbers are right in the same range in terms of what these two teams are scoring in this situation and what they're allowing. And it's all like between 102 and 105. Denver has won 11 of the last 13 between these two. In their last 4 wins, their margin of victory was close twice, 2-8, and then a blowout twice, 30-18. I feel like Oklahoma City is unlikely to score more than like 103, 104, maybe 105. If Denver hits like 110 or 111, I think this should be a good spot for them. They are -6.5. But when you look into the numbers really deeply, I'm not going to walk through every single number here because I have like 2 whole charts and stuff. But I would just say that Denver is not necessarily hitting the key numbers at the kind of clip that I'd want to see. It's more around 50%, and I'd really like to see it 75% of the time or better. And also in terms of the defense that Oklahoma City is playing against those same key numbers, like they are giving up a lot of rebounds. That's a positive, but all the other key numbers are under 50%. So I actually came into this breakdown thinking that I was really going to like Denver today with all their pieces back. And if you held me down and I had to make a pick, I would still go Denver -6.5 here. But when I ended up lining this game for myself, I lined it at Denver -4 and a total of 210. Right now it's Denver -6.5 and the total is 213.5. So I don't really see a ton of value on either of those bets here. I maybe would keep an eye on Denver live, but I'm not sure there's a lot I actually end up liking in this game once I go through all the numbers. And that's why it's important to me to do that, because I would have definitely been on Denver just if I had looked at it straight up. So in terms of trends, the only thing that I would say here that's significant, Denver is 7-2 against the spread in their last 9 at Oklahoma City. So that, again, is something that maybe would have me lean a little bit that way, but I'm going to stay off of it, at least pregame. But hopefully some of those numbers are helpful. All right, next game up is the Bulls and the Mavericks. And man, the Mavericks have just been destroying people on defense lately. In their last 5, they've given up 106, 82, 89, 86, and 96. They have 3 of those 5 games where they're holding teams under 90. Not just under 100, but under 90. They've just been filthy on defense lately. On offense, it's been a lot more inconsistent. They're also not scoring 100 all the time. But man, I think we have to really take Dallas's defense seriously. And I haven't wanted to do that. I really don't like Dallas. I don't enjoy watching them. I don't enjoy the way they play, but we have to take this defense seriously. Chicago on the other side, they have been scoring the ball really well. In their last 5, they've only gone under 110 twice. And in the other 3, they scored 120, 130, and 131. So they've been scoring the ball really well. And then on defense, they've been doing kind of okay. I mean, They held teams to 98 and 106, but then 117, 119. I don't think we have to worry about Dallas scoring that much. Chicago's a decent defense, and Dallas really only scored a lot of points against Houston. They don't score a lot of points against decent defenses. So I don't see Dallas scoring more than like 105, maybe 107 here. And so the question we're going to end up having to ask ourselves is, can Chicago score as much as they need to against what is an incredibly solid defense? Now, it looks like today Luka is a game time decision, and then Porzingis is still going to be out. I had looked at the numbers when these two guys are in and out a while back, but I went back because we have a bigger sample size now. And surprisingly, they actually are better on offense with Luka out. 3 points better in offensive rating. They're much worse on offense with Porzingis out, and he's the one who's going to be out for sure. So I think that continues to hurt them offensively. On defense, though, they're actually better by 6 points of defensive rating when Porzingis is out, and they're about the same in defensive rating with or without Luka. So I think this is a spot where Dallas is going to struggle offensively. I feel pretty strongly about that. And my question is whether Chicago can score enough offensively. So Dallas has only allowed over 107 points, which is the number that I would peg Chicago needing to cover the spread here. They've only allowed that 3 times in 20 games from the beginning of December till now. It's just crazy. When we look at the trends, they're good against the spread trends actually for both teams. Pretty strong under trends for both teams. And then Chicago's 4-0-1 in their last 5 against Dallas against the spread. So all that left me, feeling a little bit unsure. I even went in and looked at how these teams have played quarter to quarter to see if there was an angle I could find there. I do think if Dallas wins the first quarter decidedly, sometimes Chicago comes back and plays better in the second quarter if they get beat pretty soundly in the first. So that is something I'm going to be watching. But this is one where I did jump in on a couple things. Number one is I got 1 unit under 219. I just really don't think Dallas gets over 104 or 105. And I kept wrestling with whether Chicago could score 107 or not. So I thought, if I'm really wrestling with that, under 219 looks pretty good. So I did do 1 unit there. And then I ended up putting 2 units on Chicago -1. If I had done that after my full breakdown, I'm not sure if I would have stayed with it, but I feel good enough about it that I probably won't hedge out of it. I'll probably stick with that. Chicago's -2 now. If I were you, I think this game could be close, at least for a while. I would look to play something live here rather than taking Chicago -2. I think you could get plus money on the money line, or maybe even +1, +2, +3 at some point here in this game. All right, we got 3 games left, and the next one up is the return of Klay Thompson. Cleveland Cavaliers and Golden State Warriors. Everyone has been tweeting about Klay Day, Draymond, and Steph, and I actually do think I was going to say I'm not big into narratives, but I'm into narratives when they make sense to me. And I do think Golden State's going to come out and really try to play well. I think that's a positive. The negative is they may try to really force feed Klay, and without him being in the rhythm of this offense, I don't know how that'll go. Don't know how many minutes he'll get here either, but I guess I think it could be a net positive for Golden State. Looking at these two teams, Golden State is in a huge shooting slump. They've shot under 40% from three-point range in 11 out of 14 games and 4 of the last 5. They averaged 38.7 at home this season, so they average fairly close to 40. And when they've been on good runs, they're shooting 40% or better from three-point range. That's just what they do. And they have not been close to that lately. They've really been struggling. So the question is, when does that change? Because I don't see this team with all their talent with the shooters continuing to shoot so poorly. The question is whether they start to shoot it better today or not. I do think that now with Klay in, Golden State is going to have an absolutely killer second unit. They have Peyton, Poole, Lee, Iguodala, and Porter all coming off the bench. Not to mention Toscano Anderson, Bielitsa, and Kuminga. I don't even know how many minutes those guys will get anymore. So one of the things that I'm interested in here is, yes, I do think that first unit of the Golden State can shoot the ball really well, can probably score pretty well, probably play pretty good defense. But holy crap, Golden State's second unit should have a massive advantage, not just against Cleveland, but against most teams in athleticism, in shooting, in defense, like all of those. And so I think, it might take a little bit while to really get going, but I think Golden State's going to be a buzzsaw once they can really get it moving. And that gives me pause today because I'm actually worried about Cleveland scoring now that Rubio's out. I think he was really important. And I do think Rondo coming in is helpful and he can fill a little bit of that role. But man, I'm a little worried. And actually having a Coro still out is a big deal for them too. He's athletic, he can drive, he gets assists. He's just a really good all-around player. And I think they miss him as well. Recently here for Cleveland, they scored 114 against what right now is one of the worst defenses in the league in Portland. That's a team giving up. We're going to get to them here in the next game, but they're giving up 126.2 points a game in this most recent stretch. And Cleveland only scored 114. They scored 118 against what is a terrible Atlanta defense right now. It might not always be, but it is right now. Other than that, they've only scored 106, 108, 93, and 104. And now they go up against a Golden State team that hasn't been playing defense as well. But for the majority of the season, they've been the top defense in the league, especially at home. And at some point, there's going to be regression toward that positivity on defense again. A lot of the reasons for Cleveland's struggles has been their three-point shooting. When they won 10 of 12 in late November and early December, they had 35% or better in all 10 wins and one of the losses. So they were shooting well from three-point range. Since then, they've only been over 35% from three-point range in 2 out of 8, and they've been under 30% in 4 out of 8. Golden State only gives up 31.1% from three-point range in the last 7. So it is not a stretch at all to think that Cleveland could be shooting under 30% from three-point range again, facing a solid defensive team. The only advantage I see here for Cleveland is that Golden State is not phenomenal on the interior. Looney is an okay defender, and Green is a good defender. But against Allen and Mobley, I think that's a lot of size for Golden State to handle. But that's the only benefit I see. In terms of trends, there are good against the spread trends for both of these teams, strong under trends for both of these teams. And then matchup specific, Cleveland's 0-4 against the spread in their last 4 against Golden State. And the over is 5-2 in the last 7 at Golden State. I have not taken anything on this game. When I lined it myself, I made it Golden State -7 with a total of 215. Right now, the line is Golden State -7.5 with a total of 216.5. So I think this is lined pretty close. However, talking through it again right now and hearing all those numbers, if I was going to go in on this game, I would go in with Golden State. I think it's possible they smash Cleveland today, like 12, 15 points. And I'm going to be thinking more about that. It's definitely something I'll watch live. And yeah, I don't know. There's a chance I'm going to get in on this ahead of the game as well. So I think we're going to be coming back to Golden State a lot in the next couple of weeks, trying to catch them before they get, Vegas maybe catches up to what they're going to be moving forward, assuming everyone stays healthy. All right, on to the next game, my nemesis, the Sacramento Kings. If you follow me on Twitter, you're starting to know, this is becoming a little bit of a joke that I cannot get Sacramento right. In their last game, I needed them. I had +8.5. They were down 10. 25 seconds left. They go down and turn the freaking ball over. So if they had just been able to score a 2, I would have actually got the Kings right. Give you a hint. I'm taking another shot on the Kings today. Not on their spread, but on the Kings in general. But let's walk through what it is and why I'm doing that. So Fox is a game time decision here, and I really do hope he plays. The bet I placed actually is not banking on it. I still like it without him, but I like it a lot more with him. Sacramento has scored 110.1 points per game with Fox this year and only 103.3 without him. So man, almost a 7-point difference. That's a lot. But here's the deal. This is what's going to lead me to the bet I'm making here. Portland in this current form has been atrocious on defense. They're averaging giving up 126.2 points per game in their last 5. Now, they've been scoring reasonably well. They're averaging 113.8, so they've been okay on offense. Now, most of that has been because they've shot the ball incredibly from three-point range, and I think there could be some negative regression coming there. It's hard to imagine that they continue shooting the way they have. They've been 39.5% or better from three-point range in all of their last 3 games, and I think 2 of those were pushing 50 or over 50. So their shooting's just been insane here lately. Sacramento, on the other side, they're averaging 107.6 points per game in their last 5. However, they've gone 110 or better in 3 of those 5. So, they're scoring okay. They are giving up 115.6 on average in their last 5. So their defense continues to be terrible. In terms of trends here, bad against the spread trends for Sacramento. Very, very, very bad against the spread trends for Portland. Pretty strong over trends for Sacramento and 50-50 for Portland. And then matchup specific, the over is 6-0 in the last 6 at Portland and 4-0 in the last 4 straight up. So this has been a good spot for the over. And I thought about just taking the game over. It's a 223.5 right now. I think that's not terrible. In the last 5, both of these teams are 3-2 to that number in general. So, over 50%, that's not bad. But Sacramento's team total, I got at 112. So I have 2 units on Sacramento's team total over 112. Again, they've been scoring the ball a little bit better lately, and Portland just gives up so many points. So I really hope Fox plays here. If you want to wait, I think this is definitely a stronger play if Fox is in. I think it's a decent play with him out, and I'd still be okay with it, though I'd definitely be bummed if he doesn't play. All right, on to the last game of the day here, and that is the Memphis Grizzlies and the Los Angeles Lakers. This is Memphis's 5th game in 7 days, so they have been playing a lot. We still have Adams out, Brooks is doubtful, and Morant is a game-time decision, so there is a little bit of injury news here for Memphis. This is another game where I think there's a lot of good numbers. It's actually going to be that deal that Memphis is playing their 5th game in 7 days is about the only thing that gives me any pause, but I do have some bets on this game already too. I feel like I'm saying that for every game today, but let's walk through it. So Memphis is averaging 118.4 points per game in their last 5 away from home and only giving up 106.6. They're 5-2 against the spread on back-to-backs, so that doesn't kill them. They're 7-2 against the spread when they have a rest disadvantage. So they've done fine in this spot. The Lakers on the other side, man, it looks like they've been crushing it, right? They're averaging 123.6 points per game in their last 5 at home, giving up 112.6. So holy shit, the Lakers are on a roll, right? We got to roll with the Lakers. Okay, obviously that's not where I'm at. And here's why. I don't think the Lakers have played anybody in these games where they're killing people. They scored 134 against Atlanta, which again is one of the worst defenses in the league right now. They won't be forever, but they have been. They scored 122 against Sacramento, who we just talked about as a terrible defense. And they scored 139 against Portland, who's the other worst defense in the league in their current state. Again, that may not hold true for the whole season, but right now it does. If you look back at the last, what do I have here? 3, 6, 7, 10, the last 13 games. In all the games where Los Angeles scores 110 or more points, I'm going to just run through all this. I won't bore you with every single. I just geek out on this stuff. So I'm going to give you a few of the numbers here. Atlanta's defensive rating, 126.5 in their last 7. Sacramento, 113.5 on the season. Portland, 130 in their last 7. Houston, 115 on the season. Even a team like Chicago, who's a decent defensive team, their defensive rating is 112.5 in the last 7. Not that good. Well, what about when they score under 110? Well, that's when they play teams that are actually decent on defense. They scored 108 against Minnesota, who has a 105 defensive rating in their last 7. They scored 90 against Phoenix, who has a 104.8 defensive rating. 107 against Dallas, who has a 107.4 defensive rating. And we've talked about how filthy they've been recently on defense. All right, so you get the point. Like, I'm not going to go through every single team, but if you looked at this chart that I had, you would see that when LA has scored over 110, they play a team that's shitty on defense for the season or at least in recent form. And when they score under 110, they play teams that are decent on defense. So the question is Memphis decent on defense? And the answer is absolutely. Their defensive rating is 105.4 in their last 7. If Ja Morant sits, we know how good they were on defense. I think their defensive rating was under 100 when Morant wasn't playing earlier this year. So defensively, I might even like it better if he sits. Though, again, with how much they've been playing, it's probably helpful to them overall to have him in today. In terms of trends, there's really, really strong against the spread trends for Memphis. It's 50-50 for LA. Strong under trends for Memphis, or not strong, slight over trends for LA. And then matchup specific, Memphis is 3-7 against the spread in their last 10 at LA. The over is 7-3 in the last 10 at LA, but the under is 12-2 in the last 14 straight up against these teams. So the trends kind of push both ways. The one trend that's going to go against the bets I'm taking here is that Memphis 3-7 against the spread in their last 10 at LA. But just looking at all the numbers, I'm not buying the Lakers yet. I mean, I think that they're getting better, and LeBron absolutely is playing great, and they don't suck like they did. But I don't think they're as good as these last few games have made them look. They've just played really, really bad defenses. So I have 2 units on the Lakers team total under 115. I set their scoring range at 100 to 108. Maybe I'll be really wrong and look like a fool, but when I place the top end of somebody's scoring range at 108 and their team total is 115, I'm going to hit that. So 2 units on that. And then I did put 1 unit on Memphis's money line at plus 140. If it wasn't for that one trend against me, and then also the fact that they're playing their 5th game in 7 days, that's the other thing that makes me hesitant. That's a spot I would actually probably hammer for 2 or maybe even 3 units. But in this specific situation, I backed it down a little and just took 1 unit. So that's plus 140 on Memphis's money line. All right, that's a whole ton of information. I hope you found some stuff in there that is useful. Absolutely, guys, give me a follow on Twitter at NBA Attack. Send me your questions, thoughts, comments. DM me if you want to. I put up earlier today, too, I do have the YouTube channel. You can check my Twitter for the link for that. If you're interested in watching these videos but can't always jump on the stream, it's an easy way. Just go subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you should get the notifications, and you can jump on and watch it whenever I get this put out. So hopefully we have a big day today, a lot that I like. Hopefully I'm not coming back tomorrow with a crappy day, but you just never know. So let's go get it, and I will see you guys on Twitter.